Mitchell live in Washington. No joke today on Capitol Hill. Ambassador Susan Rice's attempt to clear the air with Republicans over Benghazi did not work as the White House had hoped. Senators McCain, Ayotte, and Graham said that they have more questions than they had before Rice's comments about Benghazi.
We are significantly troubled by many of the answers that we got and some that we didn't get.
And if you don't know what happened, just say you don't know what happened. People can push you to give explanations, and you can say, I don't want to give bad information.
That's troubling to me as well, why she wouldn't have asked. I'm the person that doesn't know anything about this. I'm going on every single show.
Joining me now for our Daily Fix, Chris Salissa, MSNBC contributor, managing editor of postpolitics.com, and our own NBC Capitol Hill correspondent, Kelly O'Donnell. Well, this was pretty tense. Chris, first to you. You've seen a lot of confirmation battles. This really did seem like an escalation, a warning shot. Don't send the name up here.
Yeah, you know what's interesting, Andrea? Going into it, you would at least think, well, they're all sitting down. You know, maybe they come out of this and say, look, we still kind of disagree with the way that this played out, but the explanations that Ambassador Rice gave us helped us understand. Instead, what we got coming out of it was, as you point out, I think, an upping of the ante. All three of those senators, Ayotte, Graham, and McCain, all saying we're more troubled today than we were yesterday. About Susan Rice and her role in the immediate aftermath of Benghazi. One thing I would note, though, Andrea, in the press conference afterward that you showed clips of, reporters, to their credit, repeatedly asked, so would you not vote to confirm her as Secretary of State? So would you not vote to confirm her as Secretary of State? They dodged that question. They didn't answer that question. So while it may look sort of bleak right now if you're a Susan Rice ally, I'm not sure that we should draw too many conclusions because you don't have hard nose coming out of these three people.
You don't have hard nose, but they certainly did get themselves out on a limb that's hard to get back off of. Kelly O'Donnell, this statement now from Susan Rice, just issued from the State Department within the hour. She said, in the course of the meeting, we explained that the talking points provided by the intelligence community and the initial assessment upon which they were based were incorrect in a key respect. There was no protest or demonstration in Benghazi. While we certainly wish we had had perfect information just days after the terrorist attack, as is often the case, the intelligence assessment has evolved. We stress that neither I nor anyone else in the administration intended to mislead the American people at any stage in this process. And the administration updated Congress and the American people as our assessments evolved. Now, she had with her the acting director of the CIA, and that was significant. Kelly, is that going to be enough to persuade the senators? And now we understand she's going to have a meeting later today with Senator Lieberman as well.
And she'll be back again tomorrow. Is it enough? Apparently not. And part of the reason that you're seeing this intense questioning is that they just heard from David Petraeus, who said that he knew from almost the immediate aftermath that this was a terrorist attack and that that was a working intelligence theory as well. So the idea of an evolving assessment is something that seems, according to these Republicans, to be in contrast with what they have been saying today. Of course, Susan Rice did acknowledge the essence of what she was conveying about a protest was incorrect, and certainly that is a message they want to get out. Upping the ante, as Chris said, this is also by focusing attention on someone who is a close ally of the president, possibly his next nominee to be Secretary of State. By putting so much pressure there, it's a way to leverage getting more information about the broader investigation into what happened in Benghazi. These senators have put a real focus on the fact that there had been warnings from Stevens himself, the ambassador who was killed, and others about security threats, which they say would lead you to believe more likely than not it was an act of terror right away as opposed to some sort of demonstration. So they're concerned that those sort of warning signals were not properly looked at in advance of this, regardless of what was said on television on those round of interviews that got so much attention. But why were those warning signs from the Libyan officials on the ground, U.S. officials in Libya, why were those not taken more seriously, perhaps, or addressed in a different way? So part of all this attention is that kind of leverage. Andrea?
And that's, of course, what is going to come up at confirmation hearings if she is nominated, as the president, we are told, really wishes to follow up on. If she's nominated, that's what is going to be the focus, part of the focus of the nomination and the confirmation hearings. And there was another warning shot today from Lindsey Graham. Look at what he had to say about a previous confirmational battle, one that the Republicans lost.
I remember the John Bolton episode pretty well. Our Democratic friends felt like that John Bolton, you didn't have the information needed to make an informed decision about Ambassador Bolton's qualification, John Bolton, to be ambassador. And Democrats dug in their heels saying, we're not going to vote, we're not going to consider this nomination until we get basic answers to our concerns. All I can tell you that the concerns I have are greater today than they were before.
Interestingly enough, I mean, John Bolton was not confirmed and was a recess appointee, and that certainly was a big sticking point with Republicans. But Chris Salissa, Jay Carney at the White House briefing has just said basically that this focus on the Benghazi comments on Sunday television, some might call it an obsession, seems to me to be misplaced. I'm not sure he wants it to be placed over at the State Department on why they didn't ask for more security before the events in Benghazi.
Well, Andrea, you know, it's so funny because I feel like we're talking as though Susan Rice has been nominated. Certainly, the appearance by the 3 Republican senators this morning seemed like a groundwork laying of, as you know, the argument they would make against her confirmation. But she hasn't. We know what we know is that the White House would like her to be Secretary of State, is interested in it. We have President Obama's very strong defense of her at his press conference last week, but beyond that, we really don't have all that much. I would note something, and I want to give credit where credit is due. Mark Murray, the deputy political director at NBC, pointed this out. I saw it on Twitter. It's definitely worth repeating. We focus on Ayotte, Graham, and McCain, but remember, Democrats may not need those 3 votes to confirm Susan Rice if she is put forward. They need probably 5 to 7 Republicans. Maybe they can find them elsewhere. I'm not saying that I know that for a fact, but let's not assume that even if the 3 of them are opposed, that she could never be confirmed.
But they can block it. They can block it by using
They can block it. Any one of them can. Yeah, Kelly, this is not the kind of confirmation that you want to send your top diplomat out. That's not the launch pad for a successful tenure as Secretary of State. And, of course, waiting in the wings, John Kerry, who we understand the White House will nominate to be Defense Secretary, and I'm told he would accept that post, even though he clearly would prefer to be Secretary of State. We've got to go, but thank you both very much. Chris Salissa, Kelly O'Donnell. And joining me now is Ambassador Nicholas Burns, former Undersecretary of State and Ambassador to NATO. He is now with the John F. Kennedy School of Government at Harvard. Well, Nick, we've been through this before. You and I have seen confirmation hearings go off kilter. This one is not getting a great start.
Well, and it's a shame, Andrea, because I think that these charges against Ambassador Rice I don't find convincing. She was simply representing the viewpoint of an entire administration, and many of us have been in positions of defending administrations, Republican and Democrat, in the past. I certainly have, where you're not out there where, you know, just trumpeting your own personal views. You're relying on a collective judgment, which was made at the State Department, the White House, the CIA, and other places, and she was merely the person representing the position that day. So I don't think it's fair to hold her responsible. And, you know, she's a very effective, highly intelligent person who, by all accounts, has been a very good ambassador to the United Nations. And there's so many issues, Andrea, that confront the United States, from the global economic recession to the Afghan war to Iran and North Korea to the Arab revolutions to what's happening in Egypt today. I really think that those are the issues that ought to be in front of our Congress as well as our administration officials.
Nick, what do you think is going on? This seems to be a proxy war.
Well, it does. It does. I mean, obviously, there are a lot of unanswered questions about Benghazi, and I certainly believe that members of Congress in both parties have a right and responsibility to ask those questions, but there are official commissions that will soon speak to those very questions. There's the commission headed by Ambassador Pickering and Chairman Mike Mullen, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. There are other investigations by the U.S. government. These investigations have been done in a very deliberate, comprehensive way, and we will soon know what their findings are. I think it's better for us as a collective here in the United States to wait for those commissions and not rush to judgment and not be unfair to a very fine public servant in Susan Rice.
And let me just share with our audience and you what Senator McCain said just after that session on Capitol Hill with Susan Rice. He went to the museum for a panel discussion on Syria, and this was one of his offhanded remarks.
But I believe in American leadership. I believe in the greatness of America. I believe that this president can lead. I believe that his Secretary of State, whoever that might be, can also lead.
John McCain's humor, we understand, but he was certainly treating this as though it is very much in play. Of course, as we point out, the president has not nominated her, but we understand, all of our reporting, all of our colleagues' reporting is that he would like to nominate her to be Secretary of State. Can they try to ram this through?
Well, the president has a right to nominate the person that he thinks is best for all these positions. And Andrea, as you well know, there may be vacancies in 4 or 5 key positions for this administration. So he has to make the best judgment for that. I would just hope that all members of Congress would give any nominee obviously due consideration. And today, Ambassador Rice is being asked lots of questions, and I thought she made the right decision. She took the initiative, the administration did, to have her go up to Capitol Hill. That's the right position. And as long as the administration is open about what's been happening in Benghazi with the investigation, then I think the facts will come out, and we'll wait till these official commissions report.
Now, you alluded to all of the problems that are going to face whoever becomes Secretary of State and the president in this term. Iran, front and center. Today, out of Vienna, reports on, I think the Associated Press reporting, that a country hostile to Iran and suspicious of its nuclear intentions has shared a nuclear diagram, supposedly a diagram obtained by this other country's intelligence services, of Iranian scientists that have made a very dangerous weapon diagram, at least, that would produce more than triple the explosive force of the bomb that went off in Hiroshima. Of course, we can infer from this that this could likely be the Israeli intelligence service. But what do we know about Iran right now? We've got the nuclear concerns, the fact that there are suspicions that Iran is continuing to try to arm the Hamas militants in Gaza, despite the ceasefire, and we don't know whether Egypt is going to actually monitor that and protect those tunnels from being penetrated again. What is Iran's role in all of this?
Well, Andrea, I have not seen the report to which you just referred, but we do know, because of the public reports made by the IAEA over the last couple of weeks, that Iran continues its efforts to enrich uranium and to drive towards a nuclear weapons capability. I believe this will be the #1 national security challenge that the United States faces in the next 12 months. I do think that President Obama's instinct, which is to try to see if Iran is amenable to negotiations, is the right one, because that will tell us whether or not Iran is serious about stopping short of a nuclear weapon, whether they could live live without a nuclear weapon and live within their international obligations. But Iran does pose other challenges, and you mentioned them. They've been supplying these Fajr rockets to Hamas. They've been supplying very sophisticated rocket technology to Hezbollah. This poses an enormous security threat to Israel. We've just seen that play out in Gaza. And so there are a lot of issues before the administration, many, many very serious, but none bigger than Iran, and stopping them short of a nuclear weapon is a very urgent national priority.
Nicholas Burns, thank you very much. Thanks for joining us. And still ahead, trying not to fall off that cliff. We have it all covered with White House economic advisor Alan Krueger, Democratic Congressman Elijah Cummings, and later House Republican Tom Price. You're watching Andrea Mitchell Reports only on MSNBC.